It's time for, hello, a Jersey Shore recap podcast.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. We are back for another episode of Hello.
Yes, we are GWOW and Cookie, not Angelina. We recap episodes of Jersey Shore, and we are in season 4, episode 4, Crime and Punishment. So, again, sorry if you're tuning in because you think we're Angelina. I'm GWOW.
And I'm Cookie, and we are Cookie and GWOW, which is just a brilliant name. I was thinking about it the other day. I was like looking at our logo, and I almost forgot how genius it was because we've been doing this for a while. But I really had a moment where I was like Cookie and GWOW because I used to go by Cookie. That was my stage name, and your name starts with a G. I mean, the whole thing is just perfect.
Do you remember when we were G420 and Cookie Yanks? We're so
Ew, I do
funny.
remember that. What do you think happened to those friends? I feel like they didn't get mentioned again after, what was that, season 3?
Well, they weren't really like a part of the show. They were like people they like knew in common. So they were never, it was only ever like their name. But it's so funny that you mentioned what happened to them because when we come back to this episode, it's very much Brittany and Erica, the twins from Italy. And you had said, oh, I wonder what happened to them in, like post Jersey Shore. And I looked it up and it's not a very fun story.
Uh-oh.
So they both had some pretty severe alcoholism or addiction problems. And Brittany actually ended up getting sober. Her Instagram handle currently is like sober Brit. Based on her just a brief view of her Instagram, I don't think she and I would get along like politically, but she does seem to be doing a lot for like the community of recovered people, so that's great. Now Erica, and this is where it gets icky, Erica did not get sober. And in fact, they were actually on Dr. Phil because her alcohol addiction was so extreme. There's clips of her being like, I'll drink anything if there's alcohol in it, including nail polish remover, vacuum cleaner, mouthwash, like things that are really toxic to be like consuming. And she's like, I'll drink anything if there's alcohol in it. And she looks fucked up. On the clips I saw, she's like not agreeing to get sober at all. And I was like, okay, this has been a little bit of time ago. So like, let me see what's recent. Well, the most recent is that she was arrested in Florida, like end of 2023. And I think
Shit.
she's just sitting in a drunk tank in Florida drying out, but it doesn't look like she is on a path to recovery anytime soon. But they went on quite a number of shows like post Jersey Shore, and they were just party girls, I guess. And then Brittany ended up getting sober, and I just don't think Erica's quite there yet, which is not the best.
That is not the update I was hoping for. That's quite sad. I
Yeah,
mean,
bummer, right?
I hate to say it though, but you almost expect that stories like that are going to come out of these kind of shows because I don't know, it's I don't want to be mean, but I feel like it's not the healthiest of people who seek out especially if you're not even on the cast, if you're just kind of like a background character.
Yeah, it's a hard party scene. Like it's not a
Mm.
light party scene. It's intense, and it's quite a lifestyle choice to like be drinking every single night, every day,
Mhm.
really, to that level, and having your whole world revolve around going out to clubs and stuff. And I think that extreme of like, I'm not saying you can't go out, you can't have a drink, you can't party, but like, I think people like Dina, you see her balance it so much differently than people like even Mike or Ron or Erica, So it's just it could take a dark turn depending on how you take care of yourself and what you value,
Yeah, absolutely.
and where you're making your money.
Yeah. Well, that's why I always think it's a wonder that like the Jersey Shore cast, for example, ended up for the most part to be such like functional adults
Mm-hmm.
because when you're paid to party, when your job is partying, that can't be good for your like psychology. Because a lot of young
Yeah.
people go through a party phase, but they're doing it as an escape from their real life. But for them, that was their life. That's what they did for a living.
Right.
I
It
can
was
imagine it would be really
24/7.
yeah, and I guess the show ending might have made it easier. Like if the original show had gone on longer, maybe it would have been harder. But it really is a wonder that they're all, for the most part, all of them are pretty, except for Ron, of course. But it's
Yeah.
1 out of 9 isn't bad.
And they really don't make shows like this because you simply cannot allow people to be drinking, like, just from a legality standpoint and like a liability standpoint, the way that they are on this show in today's world. Like there's so much conversation around drinking limits and the rights of like reality contestants that like this was just never fly today. And we wouldn't be like
No,
worshiping this kind of lifestyle today.
I think the shows are definitely different. That's
Let's
true.
get into this actual episode.
Well, we were talking about the twins. It kind of starts with them, but it's a very brief thing. They're
I
just sort of
think
leaving.
they're leaving, but it's important to remember like the order of events from last time because I have a
Right.
very strong opinion about the way that it was handled. Because the order of events was Mike had these twins and he was trying to go for a threesome. Dina took Erica, and so then it was 2 and 2. They go back to the house, and Erica, for whatever reason, decides to get in bed with Vinny. Dina takes her back and then does stuff with her, and then she goes and finishes the night off with Vinny. And they're talking about this the next day as if they're talking about it as if this girl had been with Vinny all night and then Dina took her from him. But that's so not how it happened. In fact, if anyone should be mad, it should be Mike. But everyone's like pissed off for Vinny and they're like, that wasn't cool. Dina's cock blocking. Like, you can't take the girl right from Vinny's bed. But I'm like, but Vinny was he was third in line. Like, did you forget that this
Right.
girl started with Mike, then went to Dina, then to you? Like, to me, this wasn't if anything, Vinny did a robbery and Dina just took her back. And they're so adamant about like Dina being the problem in this scenario. And I could not disagree more. Cause I'm like, did you forget how she started with Mike? Hello.
No, I'm so with you. I agree that it's this weird, like, possessive thing that Vinny's doing where he feels like I can't even explain what I'm trying to say, but you're right that everybody kind of flipped it on Dina like she was a problem in some way. And it got to the point where even they like gaslit her into thinking the same. Like they almost gaslit her into apologizing later in the episode, which
Yes,
really kind
I
of bothers me.
agree.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more because that happens later in the episode. But that was very frustrating to me. And I wonder if it comes from like this idea that, oh, Dina was like, they're both girls, so they're not real hooking up. Like, but like I'm a guy and she's a girl, so like we're gonna real, you know what I mean? Like I wonder if it comes from like
Oh,
they don't respect that Dina was like actually having a good time with her, maybe, if that
I
makes sense.
totally see what you're saying. I absolutely see what you're saying.
Like
It
there's a
was
little
like,
bit of
why, or you're just like fooling around, like we were gonna hook up, and like I
yeah, right.
totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of it wasn't too egregious. Is that the word? Egregious? It wasn't too, but there was a little bit of a homophobic sort of vibe happening. And it wasn't too in your face, but it was very like they sort of didn't respect Dina in that moment in a sense. I felt like they kind of felt icky about it because that it was two
Yeah,
girls hooking up.
yeah, and like jumping just a smidge out of order. Like I think when Dina first wakes up, I don't think she even realizes that there is a problem, and then they're kind of giving her a hard time, and you can tell she gets upset. But I don't even like I don't think they're being fair, and I don't think that they're explaining to her how they feel, and so she's just like, I can do what I want. Like give me a break. I don't know. Before that happens, the girls and the guys go eat lunch separately and they both kind of talk about it. And the
Mhm.
energy is super different because the girls are just kind of like, oh, if you want to experiment, what's the problem? Snooki's like, I've licked a nipple. It's all just for fun. But the guys are like, Dina's a cock blocker and I can't believe she did that. And we have a problem now. Like the way that everyone handles it, it feels super different and so weird. I don't
Yeah, and
know.
like you said, I agree that Dina was like really kind of taken aback by their genuine like frustration with her.
Yeah.
And I think when it kind of became obvious to her that there was a weird vibe is in the morning when everybody was kind of waking up, and they were making breakfast or whatever, the guys were kind of making fun of her, but it didn't feel playful. It felt like
Right.
it was coming from a place of genuine frustration that they were trying to pass off as being playful. Like they kept making lesbian jokes. I don't even remember exactly
Yeah.
what they were saying.
He
They would
was like,
like,
"Oh,
they
I'm
kept,
glad the carpets are clean at least."
yeah. And it was this
It's
weird
like
thing where she was sitting there like, huh? And they're like laughing in her face. So that kind of read as that it made me uncomfortable. I didn't like the way that went.
it's like mild homophobia. It definitely
Yeah.
did not feel good. And there's there's more to come on this. It just feels unnecessary for them to
Mhm.
be handling it with this level of hostility.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
before we get more into that, so there's a brief moment where Nicole calls Gianni because
Mhm.
there's like a lot of random like one-off side plot drama plot lines happening. I don't know. And obviously we have the whole Mike telling everyone that Snooki cheated drama, and I think Nicole wants to get ahead of that a little, regardless of what's true or not. I think she calls Gianni to be like, well, if I don't tell him, it definitely looks like I'm guilty. So like I gotta clue him into like what's been happening so he doesn't find out later. And she calls him and it actually goes well. Like I do think he does believe her, but it's still very hard to tell what the truth is.
It is, and I think Gianni wants to believe her, so he's choosing to. But you can even tell there was a tiny bit of hesitation at the beginning where she calls him and she's like, I just want to let you know that Mike is saying all this stuff about us hooking up, but it's not true. He's
Yeah.
just like mad. Oh, actually, I refused to hook up with him, and that's why he's mad and he's lying. That's what she said to him. And
Right.
Gianni, his first response was like, he's lying though, right? Like you're
Like, do
telling me
you have
right now you
anything to
didn't
tell
do that.
me?
And that I think speaks to their trust level at this point, because I'd like to think like in a healthy relationship, if you called your boyfriend and said, this guy's lying and saying we hooked up and that I cheated on you, if the relationship was really healthy and had a lot of trust, I feel like the boyfriend's response would be like, what the fuck is wrong with him? Why would he say that? Like
Right.
he's an asshole. But instead his response was, well, did you?
Right.
And she says no, and he takes it for what it is and is like, I love you, I can't wait to see you. But yeah, it was a very awkward conversation.
I guess it goes as well as it could.
You're right.
But speaking of awkward conversations, so there's that drama because Snooki's mad at Mike. There's the stuff going on with Dina, but it's Sunday and they got to have family dinner. And the girls, I think, try to break the tension a little by like dressing up, putting on like the big hats. And I think Polly says it looks like they're going to the Kentucky Derby, which it does. But they're trying to like be old Italian women in that kind of just like goofy character to break the tension, but I don't feel like it is fully successful. It feels like a very awkward dinner.
Yeah, no, it's very awkward because kind of at the same time, Snooki and Mike have this weird tension between them, and then Dina and Vinny and Polly. And so, yeah, it's one of those Sunday dinners where they're all kind of just sitting there quietly looking at each other, making awkward small talk.
Yeah, Mike at some point is like, I don't agree with what you did to Vinny. And I'm like, I think what you mean is I don't agree with what you did to me because, like, again, you were the one who started the night with Erica. So I don't get why. And Vinny even says, like, he's like, I'm not really that worried about it. Like, we can move on. But, like, nobody else seems to be letting it go. And that's when they have this weird falling out because I think the boys are actually mad at her, but are
Hmm.
also playing jokes with her. And I think she's confused. She's someone who has anxiety, and it fully puts her into like an anxiety attack because the guys are like moving her stuff and trying to like joke with her. And it just goes,
Yeah.
I think it goes too far. And then it goes to where you said, I think they kind of gaslight her.
Well, this whole scene kind of frustrates me the way it plays out because they have this sort of semi-argument at dinner. I wouldn't call it a full argument, but there's definitely tension and the conversation is not like pleasant. And then
Yeah.
right after that, the Vinny and Polly are like, oh, we're gonna prank Dina. But to me, it didn't feel like, again, like I was like when they were joking earlier in the morning, I don't think it really was coming from a playful place. I think it was their way of like expressing their
Yeah.
frustration. And so their prank was to move her bed out of their shared room and like put it on the floor in the living room. And of course she gets upset and like kind of goes off and is crying in the other room. And Jenny comes in and explains to the guys like, what is like, why can you not see why she's
What's
upset?
wrong with you? Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Because you just got in an argument with her and then you quote unquote prank her by removing her stuff from her room. Like, how can you not see that that would not read as funny to her?
Right.
But they're kind of doubling down on like, it was just a prank. So she comes back into the room and they're talking to her and about Polly specifically is saying how, oh, you're different this time. And
He
I
really
used to like you
goes
because you're one of the
off.
guy. Yeah. Well, it threw me off because
Yeah.
I was like, why are you not understanding? It almost felt like they did know and they were faking it. Like, was it like a weaponized incompetence situation? Because it seemed so obvious to me and everybody else. But Polly was saying, like, I used to like that you were like one of the guys, and now you're being all sensitive and we can't even mess with you anymore. And this is when they kind of gaslight her into apologizing and being like, I'm sorry, I've just been different this year and I'll try to be better. Like, don't apologize. You were
Right.
rightfully upset. They upset you. They were being assholes.
I really don't think she did anything wrong
No.
either. Like the whole situation is so weird in the first place to be like this mad over. And it's just like, if any of my guy friends were this mad at me over not getting their dick wet, I'd be like, literally don't talk to me. Like, be mad at me. Bye. Ugh.
Yeah, and that's why it frustrated me. I got why she did it because I felt like they kind of manipulated her, but I wish she wouldn't have apologized because she made it like, you're right, I've been acting different now, be better. No, girl. They were being
Right.
assholes. They need to be better. And this, I will say, this to me feels like one of the arguments you have with a friend group when you've just spent too much time together. I just think they're sick of each other, is what this really comes down to.
I can definitely see that. I think she was ready to just move on and was like, whatever I need
Yeah.
to say for this to be like no longer a thing. And it does work. Like it's over after that. Like there's no more,
Yeah.
we don't talk about it again. It doesn't come up. So whatever. Like I don't agree with how it went down, but justice for Gina, I guess.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It is what it is. Do you want to take a break?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can't get enough of hello?
Never.
Well, check us out on social media. We're on Instagram and TikTok at hello pod.
And if you are listening to us, but you'd rather be watching, you can go to patreon.com/hello. There's also going to be tons of bonus content, including bonus episodes and behind the scenes, like how I got my Snooki pove.
And last but not least, if you're a brand or you just want to give us money, send us an email, a professional email at hellopod@gmail.com.
All right, let's get back to the show already.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back.
We're back, and surprise, surprise, people are getting lost in Italy again. It's the next day. Nicole, Dina, and Polly are scheduled for work. I just want to mention this is episode 4, and this is I believe, their first shift. So they've been in Italy for plenty of time, and all they've really done is go to orientation. And now episode 4 is when they go to an actual work shift.
Right. And it's only the one also. There's a shift that was it Polly, Dina, and Snooki. The three of them have a and then that's it for the whole episode. There's no other. I almost feel like this is when they're starting to like they feel like obligated to do this as part of the format, but like they don't really, there's not as much to do at work. So they're like starting to phase it out a little bit, I feel, because the pizza shop is not a big part of the season at all, from what I can remember.
No, it's just enough to say, oh, that's what they did in Italy. That was their job in Italy.
Yeah.
It does feel like they have to have something, although, I mean, they don't, but like, it feels like to keep the original premise of the show for where like you go down the shore and get a job for the summer and you work and you play all on the same boardwalk. And now they're doing it in Florence, Italy. So like, I get it. And it's also adds to the gimmicky stuff of the show. Like Nicole and the boss like do not speak any of the same language, so they don't understand each other. So there's, it leaves for some of those kind of fun, hey, listen, I'll take these work scenes over a lot of the other drama that's happening in these next couple episodes. So I'm not complaining about the pizza place.
I agree. Even though it's sort of like a random thing that feels partially unnecessary, it does also offer a little bit of respite from the drama. So I agree. It's like fun moments to break up the drama. There is a moment where it really reminded me. I sort of feel like in the early days, like season one, even two, a little bit, they really actually had to work a little bit. Like they obviously were putting on a show and being entertaining
Yeah,
for the camera, but they had to some degree fake it like they were really working. As the seasons progressed, they weren't even faking it anymore, and the work was just a set. It was like a backdrop for them to just make TV, which
right.
I guess I get. I mean, that's what they were doing, but there's almost no attempt to really actually I didn't see them make any pizza, serve any customers. The whole work scene was Holly flirting with girls while passing out flyers. And
Hmm.
then Snooki and Dina were trying to get wine, but they kept getting caught by the boss. So they paid a customer to buy them wine and then bring it to the back where they then chugged it and then got caught, which was it
Yep.
was hilarious.
It was funny. I also think them like jumping around in their giant trash bag was hilarious. But I think you're right. There's not a lot of work being done.
Can I say this though? Holly passing out flyers was like a weird hit of like it flashed me back because I don't know if I've ever told you this before, but my very first job when I was in high school was working at a pizza restaurant, and they tested me in the kitchen and I was horrible. So my job just became passing out flyers. I was a flyer guy.
Wow. Crazy because my first job was working at a pizza place also, but I was like the counter girl. Like I ran the phones
Okay.
in the register.
See, I've tried. They tried me in the kitchen. They tried me on the counter. I was horrible at both. But he could. I think he could sense that I like would be willing to put in time. So he just sent me out with flyers, and I made almost no money doing it. But
Of course. Well, while
uh,
they're all at work, back at the house, Ron, who is supposed to be back together with Sam, is still calling that girl Hannah.
mhm.
And I don't really understand what his motive is there. It definitely doesn't, he's not like talking to Hannah as if he's single because he's like, oh, it'd be better if you were here. And it's all like very flirty. But
Mhm.
then he goes from that to immediately going out with Jenny to go shopping for Sam and brings her home all these gifts. So I'm like, the level of his toxicity is actually like scary and pathological. And I, even Jenny's like, I don't understand and I don't know what to do, but like I do not understand.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it's scary to a degree, and so Jenny's on thin ice with him a little bit. Like she's like tiptoeing around him, and she like wants to kind of bring it up, and she kind of brings it up because Jenny knows Hannah. This is like a mutual friend that they both have.
Oh,
So she's
right.
so she brings it up and is like, "Hey, like, what's the deal with Hannah? You're not inviting her here, are you?" And Ronnie's basically like, "Mind your fucking business." And Jenny's like, "Okay." Like, "Hey, oh, I'm
He,
good."
he's scary. Honestly, he's
Yeah.
scary. I will say when he goes and buys all these gifts and he brings them home, she's so excited. She's like, "You picked this out? This is so cool." And he gives her a floral blue dress. And when she held up that dress, I went, "Oh, that's what she's wearing when Mike puts his head through the wall." I knew it. I was like, "That's the dress that she's wearing when Mike,
Oh my
stop,
God.
Ron, stop." And so when she was holding it up, I was like, oh, we're getting close because the dress is in the building, so
The
we're getting
way
close.
the way I didn't even clock that, you were so I'm so glad you picked up on that because I didn't see it, but I remember now. You can't write TV like that. Like it's too perfect. She was wearing the gift during the big blowout fight, which we'll get to because it's next episode. But holy shit, that's like a soap opera right there.
Yeah, it's very like you couldn't have planted those seeds on purpose if you wanted
No.
to. Like just crazy.
That's
But
why people accuse the show of being fake because there was sometimes it was almost too perfect, like the foreshadowing and the Easter eggs. It's like they had to be doing some of this shit on purpose, but I don't think they were. I think it was just
mm-mm.
a lot of serendipity.
It just crazy. But so they have some separate dinners where Nicole and Jenny go to dinner and they kind of talk about whether or not they should get involved with Ron and Sam. And Ron and Sam also go to dinner. So, like, you see them being very romantic and things kind of being okay. And then you go back to Jenny and Snooki, who are kind of like, okay, but this, like, what do we do? There's a flashback to the note, and they're kind of like, maybe we should just stay out of it. Like, Ron, I think they're just all so scared of Ron.
They're scared of Ron, and I think they're also just scared of the general drama and anger and fighting in general. I
Yeah.
think they realized that like I think they learned their lesson in the previous seasons where it's like these two can't be helped. They're gonna do what they're gonna do, and
That's true.
us getting involved is only gonna make it worse and get us involved. So they make the right choice to keep their mouth shut. I think bringing it up would have been a big mistake because at this point, Sam knows who Ron is, so you don't got to keep telling her.
Well, it's quite a roller coaster they go on. Should we take a little break?
I think we should.
Okay. Welcome to Sapphic Survival Guide.
My name is Cheyenne.
I'm Gina.
Class is now in session.
How do you define queer style?
How do you communicate that you don't want to U-Haul at all?
Right, as literally every queer woman I meet hate Geminis.
How do I deal with the most devastating breakup I've ever been through? Sapphic Survival Guide.
We're happy to be queer to answer your questions.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello!
Hello. We are back.
We are back. We are getting ready to go out, and they're going to a club called YAB, Y-A-B. It looks like kind of a hip hop club. Like people are breakdancing, and at first it almost makes it seem like the gang's a little out of place, but then it shows them having a good time, and it's like fine. In fact, Vinny is practicing his Italian on some older woman.
Yeah, well, he's trying to communicate with her, and at first he thinks they're hitting it off, and she has to like muster up the best English she possibly knows to say, "I don't want to screw you." That was so funny because take a hint.
And he was like, "I'm just trying to like practice my Italian." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever."
I just thought it was funny because I just think he was like not picking up on her body language, and she had to like, "I don't want to screw you."
That's
That was
so
a
funny.
Good for her.
Good for her. Unfortunately, I actually thought there was less Sam and Ron drama this season for some reason, and now that we're in episode 4, I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it just dissipates. Like maybe we're almost through it. I can't remember, but they seemed like they were in a good place, but then just a little itty bitty thing at the club where like I don't even think Ron did anything. I think Sam just like was in her head or something, and she immediately was like, "I saw what you're doing with a blonde too," and I really don't understand why she's mad. But they of course get into a fight, but Ron just leaves, and it seems like Sammy stays at the club and hangs out like with everyone a lot longer, but Ron's like in another level of anger and drinking, and he just storms off.
It is probably good that he left because it could have escalated right there in the club. But it was like it was such like a Groundhog's Day thing because they've had this exact same interaction so many times in the show. Ron's dancing and drunk. Sam gets insecure and comments on it, even though he's probably not really doing anything particularly wrong. And then he's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And then she starts, "I'm sorry, I just did it." And it's the same argument every single time they're at a club together. I'm almost like, just stop going to the club together because it drives me crazy. Let me ask you this. I've always felt like clubbing is more of a single person's game. Do you think that a more healthy couple could have like a lot of fun at a club as a couple? Like, or do you think it's more for singles?
No, I think you could. But if your relationship is healthy, like it's kind of one of those like pressure cookers where like if you can't, I don't know, if you're not healthy, it's gonna come out kind of thing. But like my partner and I, we would go out with our single friends, and we never had fights because of us dancing with other people or anything like that. Now if it's just the two of us and we're not with our single friends, I think we'd opt for more of like a bar than a club, like somewhere that we can talk to each other and get drunk rather than like a club scene. Like I do think that dance floors and stuff is an easier time for single. I mean, I don't know. You can always go clubbing with your partner, but I feel like it's usually, in my experience, something we do with our single friends than on our own.
That makes sense. I agree with you that like loud dance floor DJ type vibe is probably not like, it's not a good date, at least. for a couple. I don't know.
And it's where you
Although
meet
maybe
someone to like take home more than I feel like a lot of relationships don't like start in the club. I feel like hookups start in the club.
right. Well, unless you're Snooki and Gianni or Roger and
That's
Jenny.
true. That's true. What am I? Well, no. Roger and Jenny know each other before, but you're
Oh, that's
true.
right.
But
That's
you're
right.
right about Snooki and Gianni. Well, Mike and Polly do find girls, and they do bring them home, but it's kind of weird because a lot of these Italy episodes have me wondering like what time it is because of people being on the phone, and then they come home and like Italy clubs are open way later, and it almost feels like the sun is out, but it's still the next like the night of, and they bring Mike and Polly bring these girls home, and the one girl's like, no, I don't want to go to bed yet. And Polly in confessional is like, it's 4 a.m. What do you want to do? Like, I want to lay down if we're gonna do this now. I mean, they're gonna fuck you or go to sleep, basically, is
Yeah,
what he's
right.
trying to say, because it's 4 a.m. And I'm kind of like, what was she expecting? She was in the club being like, I'll go home with you. It's 4 a.m. What do you think you're there to like have a sleepover campfire? Like, you're there because it's the end of the night, and he of course he wants you to get in his bed. Isn't that why you went?
Right, exactly. And so he sort of kicks her out a little bit because he's like, if you don't want to get in bed with me, then you could just leave. So she goes into Mike's room where he's with the other girl and collects her, and they leave together. Which I was surprised how not mad Mike was. He was just kind of took it on the chin, and he calls his friend Brittany.
Brittany's always on retainer, basically. I don't It's like, I guess they just have this understanding of being like fuck buddies at this point. But Ron is on the phone, and he's like profusely sweating, and you almost see his eyes like freaking out. And it makes me wonder, like, was Mike the only one on drugs at this point? Because the way that everything that happens from here on in, it feels like substances were involved, whether that was just alcohol or something more. But the way that he's like sweating through his skin, like profusely, like every single bead of sweat is huge on his forehead, and he's on the phone, and he's got these shifty eyes. And luckily, he's not on the phone with a girl. He is on the phone with a guy friend, which also makes me think, what time is it? Because, like, are you the only person drunk in this conversation? Like, did you call this guy at like 7 a.m. and he's listening to you drunk at 7 a.m.? It's hard to know, but he gets off the phone to go fight with Sam. And I'm not over the way that he looked on the phone. He looked crazy, like just mad in the eyes.
I agree with you. This whole night, he seemed, even at the club when they first started arguing, there was this like
Yeah.
instant rage, that like this palpable, visceral reaction he had when he got upset. That it's just like, it's terrifying. It's primitive. It's almost animalistic a
It
little
was
bit.
scary. So as they're fighting, it comes out that Sam like says what Mike had. She's like, well, I have to hear about everything you're doing from the roommates, because Mike told me how you have 5 girls coming and you're always calling people and blah blah blah. And Ron truly can't handle anybody calling him out, questioning him, making him look like the bad guy. Like, I don't know what in his mind is like, this is a control thing that I can't control. And it's like, it sets off this alarm bell, because he just immediately starts freaking out. Like, it escalates so quickly, and the roomies kind of make an excuse for it, as like, oh, this has been brewing with Ron and Mike, this has been brewing. But I'm like, I actually remember this fight so differently, because they've staged it in my memory as like this fight that was between Ron and Mike, and the stuff building between Ron and Mike. But I'm like, but this started as a Sam and Ron fight, and Mike just kind of randomly got brought into this. And the escalation, like I said, is what's like, it throws me off, because everyone's so like willing to make it seem like it made sense, but it doesn't make sense to me how he's, oh, Mike said something, and then all of a sudden he's wrecking the house.
Right. I agree. And it felt, I mean, Mike did say, Sam was not lying about what Mike said. He did say those things, but it wasn't anything abnormal. I mean, it was just he was kind of a gossip. He used to kind of instigate in that way. It didn't feel out of the blue on Mike's end. So I agree. I don't know where this like intense fury came from towards Mike. He runs out, he pushes Sam out of the way physically, like shoves her into a wall.
Yeah.
And Mike is like sitting on the couch by the phone, and Ron like almost flips the couch. He like knocks him off the couch,
Yeah.
and Mike is like taken aback by it because it's like just out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it feels like it could get violent at any moment. He's like he's being violent just in a way where he's not directly hitting anybody. Like you said, he's moving the couch. He's like shaking the couch. He does shove Sam a couple times. He shoves her out of the room. He's like, "Go tell him what you just told me." And she's kind of like, "You need to stop." And this is where I just cannot stand by production doing nothing, because I'm like, he's physically pushing this woman. He's put his hands on her. You have video evidence of it. It's still in the fucking episode. So I don't understand. But from what I know about Mike recapping this in like his book and on podcasts and whatever, when him and Ron went into this altercation, Mike was really like, I don't think I can take him. So what works for me is trying to be crazier. You know, when you like hear about meeting an animal in the woods and you're supposed to like act crazier, even if it's an animal that could like mangle you, because then it will be like, whoa, unexpected behavior, I'm gonna just like dip out.
Right.
That's basically what Mike decided to do. And so like Ron's being unnecessarily loud and violent, and then out of nowhere Mike decides to be really loud and violent, and he's throwing his own stuff around, his body around. We don't actually get to the wall contact in this episode. It ends with them on top of each other fighting. But if you know anything about Jersey Shore, you know he's about to put his head through that wall, and that's going to be where the next episode begins for sure. You know, there's no way it doesn't.
Yeah, right. Well, he attempts to put his head through a wall, but we'll get into that.
Exactly that. He attempts.
This is one of those I hesitate to call it iconic, because it's not iconic, but it's just, I guess, memorable lines from the show that's burned into my brain.
Yeah,
infamous.
Yep.
But Mike running around yelling, "I'm not getting involved with your relationship." That is burned into my brain. I think of it all the time. Like anytime I'm around couples arguing, I was thinking that I'm like, I'm not getting involved in your relationship.
It was wildness. And I'm like, this is where things get a little dark, because it like, I wonder where Mike's head was at from a drug standpoint, where Ron's head's at from an addiction standpoint. It all just feels dark, but we can do our cookie quote to make it a little lighter.
Yes, I love that they're always, and by the way, anyone listening at home should know that GWOW gets these, and I appreciate that you do, because you always pick the perfect one. They're always like really like the more fun, lighthearted thing, and it's always a good way to end the episodes.
Yeah, we got to keep things light when things get a little dark here. So would you like to be Snooki or JWoww?
I'll be JWoww. I like JWoww's lines.
Okay, perfect. Here we go. Oh my God. Like, I miss smushing. I miss having sex. Like, what the fuck am I going to do?
You should get a dildo made.
Oh, like a clay of his penis?
I might do it to Roger, turn him into a vibrator.
Will you show me his? We can compare. Just asking. Ed scene. So funny. That is the first thing I would want to do if any of my friends got a like any sort of recreation art piece of their boyfriend's dick. I'd be like, let me see. I want to see it.
1000%, because it's like you get some insight, but it's not quite as invasive as seeing a photo of the real thing.
True.
It's the perfect in between. I'm the same. I would also want to see it.
It's so funny. I've had friends who've like showed me different like videos or pictures that they took while they were having sex. And I'm always like, they're always like, I don't know if this is weird. And I'm like, no, it's hilarious. Let me see it. I'm like Snooki in that way, for sure.
No, very that. I can't, because sometimes even like if I'm not attracted, it's just curiosity gets the best of me. Like I just want to know. Yeah.
Funny.
It's all silly. It's just like we're just people with bodies. It's nature.
Well,
I guess we'll just say we'll see you next week, and prepare for kind of a dark episode, unfortunately. And
yeah.
We'll see. But I guess this is goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hello.
No, tell them goodbye.
If you want more of the podcast, you can follow us on any social media at Hello Pod.
We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/hello. We've got a video feed there so you can see our beautiful faces while we recap Jersey Shore. And we've also got a little bit of behind the scenes bonus content for you.
And you can find me anywhere online at The Libregina, including my website, thelibregina.com.
And you can find me online on TikTok and Instagram at angel.iconic.music.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.